So with fences, you can make entertaining content about maybe you're a funny guy, you're cracking jokes, and you're sharing stories about the fences you're installing. Like, I today had this problem installing this fence, this terrible thing happened, I lost my drill, yada, yada. Number two is you could educate the process. Man, Frankfurt is a beautiful place. We got to go to a hockey game 2 days ago, and I don't think I've seen anyone that fanatical about sports in my life. I felt like you guys were ready to go to war, and it was just a hockey game, but tremendous amount of violence, which I appreciated, and it made it really exciting to watch. But today we're going to dive into Q&A. So what I really want to do today with you guys is try to, I guess, answer as many questions as possible. And I'm happy to answer multiple questions if we go around in a loop, but what I'd like to do is make sure we get through as many as we can in rapid fire. If you want to deep dive a little further, I'll make myself available out in the hall, and we can continue talking after this session if you want to ask more one-on-one stuff or you want to film Q&A for your content. Myself and my team will make ourselves available after this. Cool, so let's dive in. For me, I think when it comes to Q&A, it's an opportunity for us to kind of deep dive into each other's challenges, and what you'll find that is when I answer your question, I'm going to try to make it as relevant for the whole room as possible. So when you ask a question, I might answer it in a way that's a bit more, I guess, inclusive of everyone else and maybe how we can pull all that together. But I'm excited to dive in. So we've got Diana, she's going to be running around with a microphone, and we're going to be able to ask questions. And then also my team, Cam over here. Everyone give an applause for Cam on the media team. And we've got Felix here on the camera as well. So these guys are going to be playing support, making sure we can answer as many questions as possible. As you can see up here, I'm a big fan of drawing stuff as I'm a designer, and I'm obsessed with diagrams. So if we nerd out today, I hope I give you guys as much value as possible. So let's dive in. And do we have, by raise of hand, anyone want to kick this thing off with a question? There's a couple questions down here. Down the right-hand side, the gentleman in the white. He's running. If you could just tell me your name and what you do. And
hey, mate.
Hey, what's up, dude?
We had a great conversation today in the morning.
We did.
My name's Josh. I'm the owner of a, it's a specific company. It's called Falkenzaun. So we are
Falkenzaun.
Falkenzaun, exactly. Beautiful.
And sounds awesome. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate. So we offer very high quality fences all over Germany.
Fences is in...
Fences like gates.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
For private, people, for the houses. And the question is, it's like a very specific brand. It's not like Apple, Mercedes or Ferrari or something like that.
I understand.
And the question is, if you are in a like high quality segment, with a premium product, how do you create the brand? Because my question is, like most people say, you always have to find like the problems of the customers. Because fences is very specific. It's not for everyone. It's not what you live with.
Right.
You're not like as a child growing up with saying, oh my God, I want to have Falkenzaun. This is the best in the world. It's like very specific. And most people say, find the problem and get the customers. So how would you say, how can I make like advertisement for such a brand, for such a company?
That's a great question. So we've worked with some interesting clients over the years, and I think when it comes to a niche product like what you're talking about, when it comes to getting attention on social media, there's only 7 ways to get attention. So if you guys want to write this down, if you've got a mobile phone or a pad handy, when you're producing content, advertisement, whatever you're doing, I believe you can make any type of content interesting. This is how you have to think about it. So when it comes to content creation, there's only really 7 ways to make something go viral. And what you have to remember is everything is emotional. Now, when it comes to viral content, whether you're on TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, or otherwise, these are the 7 things that get the most clicks, the most engagement, the most comments and reshares. And then I'll tie this back to branding. So number 1 is humor. Things that are funny, hilarious, make you laugh, make you giggle. It gets attention. Think about how many times you've sent reels to each other that have been humorous. Number 2 is familiarity. What I mean by familiarity is think about your spouse or your best friends when you see that meme and you send it to them and it's super relevant to your relationship and how they see the world. Does that make sense? When you send something where you're like, my mom won't understand this, most of my friends won't understand this, but there's one person I know, I'll send them that meme and they get it. So familiarity is like if you went into a restaurant in London and you hear a German accent, you're like familiar. And immediately you're more comfortable to talk to that person. Does that make sense? Number 3 is sex. Sex sells. If anything's provocative or provokes, you know, sexual energy, think about dancing, all that kind of stuff. You know, I don't do this personally, but this gets attention on social media. Next is you have danger. Things that are dangerous or risky. So like think about Red Bull content. Someone's flying off the side of a mountain on a mountain bike down the side of a hill, 6 miles up in the air. That's gonna get your attention. It's gonna create vertigo or a sense of attention. Next is things that cause like what I call like aspiration. It's aspirational content. And this is the kind of stuff that gives you goosebumps. And this might be before and after shots. This might be, my life was there and now it's here. It can be stories, it can be things that are prolific. Next is you have things that are like inflammatory. And this is content that provokes frustration, anger, tension, or creates arguments. So think about it if Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Jordan Peterson, these characters, Andrew Tate, they create inflammatory content and you might not like them, but they're getting engagement. They're going viral because they're creating arguments. And finally, when it comes to content creation, there's also a category, what I call weird. Have you ever found yourself reading or watching a reel or a piece of content where you're like, I don't know what's happening. This looks stupid, doesn't make sense. It's like someone's crawling in ooze and like screaming and you're like, you can't help but watch it. So weird, odd, or strange content makes you go viral. So to answer your question, when it comes back to fences, how do we make fences interesting? Well, can you make it humorous? Can you make it create arguments? Can you start fights with other fence companies? You know, like Wendy's and Burger King. Can you make it dangerous, right? Can you make the installation process seem scary? Can you make it aspirational? This is what someone's house looked like before a fence. This is what it looked like after a fence. This is the installation process. This is what we did about it. Inflammatory, maybe you can cause or create an argument or make it weird or strange. And you can teach the technique behind how weird it is to maybe install fences and gates and things of that nature. So when it comes to advertising, I try to get away from advertising and I try to do one of two things. But does this make sense? So when you go on Instagram, TikTok tonight and you see a viral piece of content, take note of this because the reason it goes viral is because they've got a cocktail of these things. You don't have to just do one. You can make something weird and sexy. You can make something humorous and aspirational. You can make something emotionally engaging and dangerous whilst also being provocative. You can mash these together and create viral cocktails. Does that make sense? By raising hands. Okay, cool. The second thing is when you're doing this, you have to have this mindset. So with fences, there's really only two ways to make content that people like. Number one is to entertain. And number two is to educate. So with fences, you can make entertaining content about maybe you're a funny guy, you're cracking jokes, and you're sharing stories about the fences you're installing. Like, I had this problem installing this fence, this terrible thing happened, I lost my drill, yada, yada. Number two is you could educate the process on what you have to do to install that. Now, you might not think this is interesting, but I follow a page on Instagram. In Australia, we have these bins at the front of our house called wheelie bins. They're like bins that are about this high, and they have two wheels on them, and we call them wheelie bins because you can wheel them around. There's a guy on social media with 2 million followers, and he gets big hits, and all he does is clean those bins. But he's really funny. And he drives around, he knocks on people's doors, and he says, "Can I clean your bins?" They're like, "Sure." And then he cleans the bins, shows the before and after, aspiration, and then people are entertained by that, and then they send him a DM and they hire him because he's funny. So back to entertainment and education, when you're producing content, you have to hit one of these notes. Because otherwise, if it's not one of these, what are we doing? We're trying to sell. Right? One thing I know about Germans is we don't like to be sold to. Someone starts to sell to you, you're like, get away from me, right? So we can't sell. We have to either entertain or educate. Or what I like to call edutainment. Edutainment is when you put both these together and you can educate whilst being entertaining. Does that make sense? So on the stage in the last 3 or 4 minutes, I'm trying to be entertaining, but I'm also trying to educate, and you can bring both of these together and make interesting content. Great question. But does that make sense, guys? Great. Okay, cool. Next question by raise your hands. We've got a gentleman over here in the black. Oh, do we have?
I'm running back. No, it's okay. A little bit of cardio
Full
is
workout.
the motto. There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
I was just kind of wondering.
What's your name and what do you do?
Stefan Eckerhold is my name. I actually ride motocross. I'm a pro athlete, so a bit of a different direction.
Oh yeah.
I was just wondering if you have sort of like a way to go about which new platforms to join when they come out, what kind of metrics you go by when there's like a new hype around some sort of, like, let's say TikTok, if it makes sense to start posting on that platform, and then how to kind of find your feet in, because there's so many different areas that you can post nowadays.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to just pick one out and be like all in on the one?
Yeah.
Like maybe, like, let's say YouTube content or Instagram. I'm kind of big on Instagram. I never really like to like jump from one hype train to the next.
Yeah.
But it was just wondering if there's some sort of like, metrics or some plan to go about that to make sure that you're getting the most out of every platform. Maybe there's a point where you should start switching to different platforms. I just kind of the process behind all of that.
That's a great question. So I'll talk to all 3 levels of that. And by 3 levels, great question. 3 levels. So level 1 is I'm getting started and I haven't done this before. Level 2 is I'm doing this and it's going okay. Level 3 is I'm crushing it. Can we remember that for a moment? So level 1, 2, and 3. So 1, starting. Level 2, you're doing okay. And number 3, you're crushing it. So first I'll talk to people who are starting. Now, when you're starting on social media, I like to think about it like this. If you have 2 pot plants and I give you 1 cup of water, would it be better to water 1 pot plant every day or try to water both? My analogy is if I have 1 pot plant and I want this pot plant to grow and I've got 1 cup of water, I'd rather focus on 1 pot plant until that is bearing fruit. Because when you start producing content, it just looks like dirt. Nothing happens. You're posting content, nothing happens. Post content, nothing happens. It's like watering a seed every day, but you're not seeing any evidence of any progress on your social media content. Who's experienced this? You post, nothing happens. This is what I call the germination process, because you have to wait for your content to start getting roots. How does your content start getting roots? Number 1 is consistency. Number 2 is improvement. And number 3 is targeting your audience. So 1, you have to be consistent. 2 and 3 so let's focus on consistency. If you post every day, the algorithm starts to learn, okay, this person is consistently posting content. We don't yet trust them, but you're starting the process. Number 2 is you're improving. So Instagram wants to see you, for example, improve. And number 3, as you're improving, you want to make sure you're taking the time to target your audience. As I said yesterday, if you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. So back to the pot plant example. As you start consistently posting content, you're improving, and you're targeting the right audience, you start to get a shoot comes out with 1 leaf on it, and you want to continue posting content. And this is my analogy. I focus on 1 platform until it bears fruit. So as I focus on Instagram and it continues to grow, and then I get a fat apple at the end of it, that to me is like evidence of like, okay, this apple represents a customer. This 1 platform is now giving me customers. That means my social media is now working. Now, do I start growing other pot plants? Or do I keep focusing on this fruit? I suggest you focus on 1 platform. Now, which platform should we focus on? Who focuses on Instagram by raising hands? Okay, TikTok, YouTube, and some other platform like X. Okay, cool. So majority is Instagram, a little bit of TikTok, not as many people on YouTube. Personally, I focus on Instagram. I think it's the most beginner friendly. TikTok requires you to be super entertaining and give a ton of dopamine. But for me, I would focus on 1 platform. Now, people that are doing okay, let's just say you're doing one platform and it's bearing fruit, and you're getting customers, your business is growing because of it. If you feel capable of watering a second plant at the same time, do it. Now, one of two ways. You can either recycle this content and post it on another platform, or you can organically create new content. There's no right or wrong. It's just a matter of thinking to yourself, what are you capable of managing? Idealistically, you want to apply yourself differently to each platform, but at the same time, if all you can do is recycle, you may as well. If it takes you an extra 20 or 30 minutes a day to hit 2 or 3 platforms with the same piece of content, that's a good thing. That's a great question. But back to this, if you're crushing it and you're doing really well on one platform, my advice is if you're crushing it, try to start hiring people to come and facilitate to allow you to hit more platforms. So for example, right now, Cam, where's Cam at? Cam at the back right-hand corner here. So he's my media manager, and he's responsible for LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And underneath Cam and his team, we got a specialist on the podcast, a specialist for Instagram, a specialist for TikTok, a specialist for LinkedIn. That's the team that we're now building because we're crushing it. But I wouldn't try and do that unless you've got fruit on your first tree. Does that make sense? Great question. We'll keep rolling.
Can I say thank you as a social media manager?
Yes.
And please applause. This chart is amazing, this plan.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's a daily pain.
Yeah. Next question. Raise your hands, guys. Let's try and pick a lady. Any girls out there? Right here, madam.
Hi, Andrea Bodenhagen. I work for a solar company.
Fantastic.
Yeah, not so much at the moment. Solar has the problem that the product is basically interchangeable.
Right.
There's double as much capacity in the market than there is demand.
Yeah.
So as a small brand, how do I survive and how do I make myself more visible than the others and still be being able to be distinguished? If I am, for example, educating, making sure that I don't educate them and they run to the big ones.
Okay. Are you focusing on sales?
Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about sales. Who wants to learn a little bit about sales while we're here? Big raise of hands. Let's go. Okay, great. So I have the analogy that there's only 5 ways to sell. There's only 5 ways to produce money. Now, the reason I can speak confidently to this topic is because I've been a sales manager since I was 19. So I've led sales teams, I've built sales teams, I've broken records at companies, and in my opinion, there's only 5 ways to sell. Number 1 is cold. Cold selling is door knocking, phone calls out of a phone book, sending DMs to strangers on social media. Cold selling means you're going in cold, right? It means that you're approaching complete strangers and you're trying to pitch to them. Number 2 is networking. So believe it or not, at this event today, who's had someone approach them and try to sell them something? I have, right? And who's tried selling someone on something? Be honest. A couple people? Okay. So networking is attending events like this, socializing, meeting people, sharing business cards, exchanging ideas, and seeing if there's anyone out there who would like to conduct business. Now, if anyone in this room has been down to the event downstairs where the sponsors are, those people there waiting are networking, and they're also cold selling. So they're trying to network to cold leads to try to sell them. Number 3 is you can create media. And what I mean by this is you can produce social media content, you can launch a podcast, you could be a guest on someone else's podcast, you can speak on a stage like this or a stage downstairs. So when it comes to my team, when we do media, we look at this as media, right? Social media content or anything where you produce value. So we're either entertaining or we're educating. This to me is media. So you can make a lot of revenue, and over 86% of my leads in the last 5 years have been because of Instagram. And now people tell me all the time, well, when it comes to Instagram, the leads aren't that good. Well, I would say to you, I've met most billionaires I've met on Instagram. They're on there, they use the platform. Number 4, this is what I call taprooting. Now, taprooting is a concept where you treat or imagine every prospect like a doorway. So if we imagine a doorway, I'm going to pick on someone in the crowd. This gentleman with the beard, what's just yell your name out? Nicholas. So this is Nicholas. I've just met Nicholas. What do you do, Nicholas? Founder of a what? Founder of a marketing agency. So I've just met Nicholas. He's the founder of a marketing agency. Now, maybe I met him through networking, or I met him through Instagram, or I meet him on stage at an event like this. Now we know each other, and he's a node in my network or a doorway. Now, Nicholas, do you know any millionaires? 2 millionaires? Personally? Yes. Great. Do they run companies? Yes. This is taprooting. So now I've found out in his network he knows 2 millionaires. And I'm sure each of these millionaires knows more millionaires. Now this is where we get into the dark arts. And the dark arts is essentially where you start to, I guess, create relationships or friendships in the marketplace where you're not trying to take anything from someone. So let's just say, Nicholas, would you like to get coffee tomorrow and hang out, man? I want to know more about what you do. That's it, right? So now I'm immediately in his network. We can have coffee together. We can get to know each other and share stories. And I'm not trying to sell. I'm not trying to pitch. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just trying to get to know Nicholas. Now, by raise of hands, who consciously audits their circle to bring more successful people into their orbit? Right? Okay, great. And if you're not doing that, you need to be conscious of this because there is a way to generate leads. So some of the biggest leads I've ever gotten is just meeting cool people, taking them out to coffee, getting to know them. And what happens if they like you? They're like, dude, I want to introduce you to my friends. And then before you know it, you get access to a network. Taprooting is making sure that I'm giving Nicholas some kind of value as a friend, and then I start to meet his friends and so on. Now, by the age of 21 years old, each and every one of you knows about 15,000 human beings. So whether we realize it or not, we're naturally doing this. But when you start building a business and you start getting successful, you need to be conscious of who am I bringing into my orbit and how am I connecting with them. Does that make sense? So taprooting is another analogy. Who can have a guess at what the last one is? Paid ads. These are the only 5 ways to generate sales, period. You can cold sell, you can meet strangers, you can network like an event like this, you can produce social media content, podcast, blog, whatever. You can do taprooting, or essentially referral-based marketing. Or you can do paid ads. So who would like to, in your case, with the solar panel company, make more sales? Which of these 5 are you focused on right now? Two, 3, and 4? 1, 3, and 5? 1, 2, 3, and 5. Cool. Yeah, 4 is tricky. But I would say this, what you want to do personally is you want to have a meeting with your company and you want to ask them, where are we focused and where are most of the leads coming from? Because if most of them are coming from networking or from media or from paid ads, you want to identify where are the predominant leads coming from and how do we double our resources and double our energy into that bucket. Back to the tree analogy, right? If you're trying to water 2 plants, maybe you can't be as prosperous if you're just focused on one. So for our company, the biggest lead generator is events like this. We get the most meat and potatoes at events like this because business owners come up to me and they're like, dude, I want to work together. How do we work with you? And for us, the media production side of our business, social media content, podcast, and live events like this is the bread and butter for my agency. Now, initially, it was media. Then it was networking. Now it's also stages. Now we're only, after year 5, spending substantial money on paid ads because I don't want to be responsible for all the revenue of my company. Now for you, you just have to have that meeting. And for anyone in the room right now, these are the only 5 ways to sell. Don't try to do all 5 at once. Pick one until it bears fruit. And when there's enough fruit in that first way of generating leads, take that revenue and put 20% of it into investing into tree number 2. Does that make sense? Great. Raise your hands or any other questions. Let's keep it rolling. More questions, guys. These are great. Gentleman down the back here in the black.
I'm coming. Give me a second.
It's a good workout.
It is.
So directly also on this. So I have a coaching company.
What's your name?
My name is Tobias, sorry.
Tobias.
I have a coaching company where I work myself as a coach, but I just started my business. So the company exists since 2018, but just in August now I'm fully focused. And now my question is, where should I focus to get the most customers from directly? Because I decided to start the paid ads thing. On Meta, I have an agency which is doing that for me. And I also tried Instagram. But to be honest, in Instagram, there was no feedback at all. So
yeah.
What is maybe a tip from you for me to start the business then?
Fantastic. Okay, so it's an advertising question. How do I advertise more effectively? Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Great question. How do we advertise more effectively? So when you think about advertising, I like to keep things like really, really simple. And there's different ways of advertising. And who's seen these funnels before where it's like level 1 down to where the money pops out at the end, right? Like we all want the money down the bottom, yeah? So what happens when you're advertising is you're going through different levels and you have to be good at every level. So the first level is attention. Now, if you have my attention, doesn't mean I'm gonna give you my money. But now you have my attention. What do we want after we give our attention? Is we want some kind of value. Right, and this is typically where there's a promise from your brands. So in our case, we might get your attention with social media content. Then I get your pixels, and then I'll target you with a value drop. And a value drop might be like, hey, here's a free brand audit. Or here's a downloadable ebook where you can learn how to solve this problem. I'm gonna give you value first. Why do I wanna give value first? Is because if I give you value for free at no cost, what do you wanna do? It's called the law of reciprocity. Has anyone heard of the law of reciprocity? All right. So the law of reciprocity is essentially if I give you value, you gain something, and if you got it for free, you naturally want to return the favor. So if I came up to a complete stranger at this event, and I'm like, here's $1,000, see you later. And they're like, what's the catch? I'm like, no catch. They're like, this feels wrong because human nature is to exchange value. If I give you value, you naturally want to give me value, and that's how humans have survived for so long. So the law of reciprocity is really important. You activate that law if you give value, but you have to promise your audience something. And if you're not doing this, the leads are usually kind of shitty. So you have to come up with a great way to give value. Does that make sense? Can we keep rolling here? Cool. All right. So then we want to get their details. And this is what I do with my team. I want their phone numbers. I want their email. I want to know where they live. And we ask a lot of questions. Who would like to know what questions we ask? Great. Okay, cool. So there's a series of questions that we ask when I get their details. I'm trying to gauge one thing. Are they from 0 to 500K, right? Are they from 500K to 3 million? Are they 3 to 10 mil, or are they 10 mil plus? Why am I breaking my audience up into these categories? Because I want to understand what life cycle their business is at. The psychology here, 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 and here is very different. We'll come back to this in a moment, but does that make sense? So you want to understand what's the size of their business, how many people work for them, as much data as you can get. Now, if you're giving them value, they're happy to give you details, right? And you might be able to ask 5 to 10 questions. You know, phone number, email, what city are you in? Tell me what industry your business is in. What size revenue is your company? And what's your goal? And maybe they can have a note section. By capturing these details, I can enact and I can engage. So now we've swapped value. I can engage, I can call you, I can email you, I can contact you, and most of the time, 80% of these people, if the value's good, are happy to talk to you. Does that make sense? So what we do is, we give away social media content, we give value, we promise you something, we collect your details, we reach out and engage. My team do cold calling, essentially. So if we go back to our sales list here, we do cold selling. So we run advertisements, but the second phase is, do you have a sales team following up with those leads? And if you don't, you don't have the full funnel. Does that make sense? The last step is you sell. You identify people worth being engaged with, and then you sell them a product. So just to recap, I have to get your attention first by producing social media content. 2, I need to give you value beyond the content, a downloadable, something to digest. I want to collect your details, and then I want to proactively pursue you. Don't wait for your leads to pursue you. You pursue your leads, either with a sales team, an email marketing system, or something where you're pulling people towards you. Whoops. Lastly, is we got to learn how to sell. Because if you can't close the deal at the end of the funnel, you're not going to make money. Your objective is, if you can close 2 out of 10 leads that you get on a phone call with, you're doing well. If you can't close 2 out of 10 leads, you need to learn how to sell better. If you're selling 8 out of 10 phone calls, your price is too low. All right, cool. So who would like to understand better the psychology here? Right. So the reason I break them into these categories, and to be specific here, I break clients into different monetary categories. So from 0 to 500,000 is usually startup phase, or if they're not able to continue to grow, they're kind of self-employed. 500K to 3 million means they're in a growth trajectory. 3 to 10 million usually means they're established, but they're still stably growing. 10 million plus is usually a big enterprise client with hundreds of employees. Now, what I've noticed is there's brackets of decision making. So this is what I mean. So I've done over 1,000 brands. And would you believe that billionaires, millionaires, and startups have a very consistent stat that I've noticed? So startups, guess how long, on average, it takes a startup to make a decision on a logo concept that I pitch to them? 6 to 8 weeks. And I show them 3 logos, and it takes them 6 to 8 weeks to lock in a decision. That's the average. For someone who's a mid-weight business or a millionaire, the average is 3 days. What do you think a billionaire's time to decision is on my calls? It's immediate. This is what I mean. I show them the logo. Yeah. Or, I don't like it. Can you come up with some new concepts? No problem. Give me 2 weeks. Does that make sense? Why is this the case? Well, this person's been this person and this person, right? But has this person been these people? No. This person has been through the ringer, and they've learned that time is incredibly valuable. So for me, when it comes to compressing time frames, billionaires make immediate decisions because they've got other shit to take care of. Startups have too much time, and they spend too little time focused on money-making activities, which is something else we can dive into. But isn't that spooky? And we've run the data on this, and billionaires just make immediate decisions. They can be brutal, they can be blunt, but at least you know where you stand with them immediately. We can come back to this. Let's keep rolling with the questions. And we can talk about branding, sales, advertising. These are great questions. Raise your hands, guys.
I'm not sure if we have some time left because your timer is up.
Oh, no.
It's down.
We have time?
Can we have a last question? Yes? Okay. Really last question,
Yeah.
right? Okay, good. Then pick one. I will run to them.
This gentleman here with the glasses. Yeah.
Oh, he.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
keen.
sorry. I didn't saw you.
It's hard to see you guys. Sorry. These are great questions, though.
Thank you so much. I'm working since 30 years as a couples therapy and for psychotherapy. So one question is like branding. It's very much into me, and it's like is also a stop because I cannot grow over like 4 couples a month. That's done. And the next question is, I know the people if they come to me. I know everything about their sex life and everything, but I don't know them before they contact me. So
Right.
they come on my website, and I recognize some of them want to see a video or something, how
Okay.
it works and how much, and some of them want a kind of estimation if they have a chance at all. So so maybe the question is, what is better? Because if I focus on one thing, it's maybe easier than to give them a choice. Do you want this or this? So I want to know, do I put the video or do I put the estimation, and how do I go over this branding that is fixed on me?
So can you zoom in on maybe what part of that question you really want to answer?
Okay, the main question is, if they come to my website,
Yeah.
should I focus on giving a video, how it works or something, or
Right.
should I focus on estimation? So that the first step is what I tell them.
I see what you're saying.
So
yeah.
what is
So,
the first step?
Great question. Yeah, I think it oftentimes, like, by raise of hands, who has their price on their website for their product or service? Great. Who has a website but doesn't do that? By raise of hands. Okay, cool. Now, I think the majority of you don't show your price, and if you're consulting and you're limited with your time, I would say that from my experience, people that are consultants typically do better when they reserve their price, and then we do what we call a discovery call. And a discovery call, in my case, is essentially I'm looking for a handful of things. So when you're meeting a client and you're selling services like consulting, we do what I call a discovery. And a discovery is essentially like you're trying to identify their problem. So who would like to know the 5 steps of selling? Because I think I can help you with this in a different way than you might think. So rather than changing the video on your website, maybe I could tell you when you get on the call how to maximize the value when it comes to that. So these are the 5 steps to selling everything. Everything's 5 steps. Have you noticed that? I don't know why that is the case. I just try to keep it punctual. Cool. So when we get on any interaction at Rival, whether I'm selling personal branding or corporate branding, it's always first and foremost what I call the meet and greet. Okay? So the meet and greet is I just want to break the ice with you, right? So Nicholas, was it? So I might be like, yo, what's up, Nicholas? Thanks for booking in a call. Appreciate your time. How did you find me, man? Was it on Instagram? Cool. Tell me a bit about your business. And I would just get him to open up and start talking. We just chit chat back and forth with no intention. I'm like, where are you located? How did you find me? What made you want to reach out? We just want to have a chit chat. Like, dude, do you have kids? Like, what kind of car do you drive? Whatever. I limit this to about 5 minutes. You don't want to stay here too long because sometimes people get pissed off. Now, you can tell people are quite wealthy or have money if they're like, dude, get to the point. So when you're on a sales call and someone's like, get to the point, that's money. That's what money sounds like. Money sounds like, now, move, let's go. I don't have time, right? Back to the billionaire. What does a billionaire want? They want everything immediately. Now, someone might not be a billionaire, but if they want things urgently, that's what money sounds like. So if someone gets on a call and they're in a hurry, good. They probably have money and their time's probably important. If they're like wasting time, they're probably a startup. They probably have heaps of free time. So the meet and greet is just the formality of let's break the ice. Number 2 is what I call the needs analysis. Needs analysis is like, all right, Nicholas, what do you need, man? Like, tell me about the troubles with your brands. Oh, dude, the content's struggling. Our ad revenue's not doing great. What else? The website needs an update. What else? I'm not happy with our logo. What else? Man, I'm in the middle of a divorce. Brutal. What else? I got lawyer fees. What else, right? And we go right into it. And I'm not kidding you. People tell me all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm in the middle of a divorce. I'm moving house. I got this going on, this going on, this going on. What I like to do with the needs analysis is I want to exhaust you of all your problems. Does that make sense? So what people do poorly often is when they hear, I need a logo, they pounce on it. But don't pounce on the sale yet. Get the rest of the needs. What else? What else? What else? You just ask what else until they can't come up with anything else. And when they're exhausted, they're like, that's it. You're like, are you sure? I think I've got a few ideas for you. I just went to your content and it doesn't seem like you're posting consistently. Yeah, we need a content creator too. So you can plant needs. Does that make sense? Cool. So once you completely exhaust them of their needs, number 3 is you want to repeat it back to them. And you want to create tension. The reason you want to repeat someone's needs back to them, so Nicholas just told me all of his needs. And you're probably not in the middle of a divorce, are you?
No.
Okay, great. Is this your wife?
No.
Okay, great. Co-founder, perfect. Don't want to create any tension, but maybe we do. So I would repeat back to you. So it looks like you need an update on your website. You're not happy with your logo. Your content needs a refresh. Your advertising's not performing. Your SEO needs a bit of a bump. Is there anything else? Nope, that's pretty much it. Great. Now, how painful has it been dealing with this for the last 6 months? Or has it been longer than that? Dain, I've been dealing with this for 2 years. Cool. If this continues for another 2 years, what's the cost of that? Oh man, I don't want to deal with that. I don't even want to run this business anymore if that's the case. Well, how fast do you want to solve this problem? I'm trying to create tension. Does that make sense? So intentionally, I'm trying to put Nicholas in a position of pain so he can feel the problem. I want him to really feel the problem, because what are us business owners really good at is we pop our head in the sand and we want to bury ourselves from our problems and like we don't want to hear it. So instead of doing that, you want to put Nicholas into a position where he's like, man, this actually kind of sucks. If I don't do something about this now, I'm never going to do anything about it. What happens if you put someone in a position of pain? They either want to run away from you or they want to buy from you. So in either case, the next step is I want to flush out his objections. Now, I don't want to wait for Nicholas to tell me why he doesn't want to buy from me. I want to find out for him. So Nicholas, you've had this problem for 2 years. Why haven't you done anything about it, essentially? What stopped you from dealing with this sooner? I had another agency, they were terrible. Okay, so are we allergic to new agencies? Yes. Why are we allergic to new agencies? Because I've always only had bad experiences. Great, so now I know I have an objection I need to handle. An objection doesn't mean no, it just means I have something to deal with, okay? I'd rather talk about the elephant in the room rather than not know why the client didn't buy from me. So many salespeople aren't flushing out the objections. Is it a money objection, a time objection, a concern or stress objection, I've been burnt before objection? Lastly, is we want to present. We don't want to sell, we want to present. This is what we do, this is how we do it. And then I tie my presentation back to his needs or her needs. So whenever you're presenting your products or your services on a sales call, make sure you're presenting according to their needs. Because every time I talk to Nicholas about one of his needs, he's like, I got this problem, I got this problem, I got this problem. I'm like, great. These are arrows I'm going to put in my quiver. Now, when I go to my presentation, metaphorically speaking, I pull out one of those arrows, I fire it back at Nick. I think that if we did this process, man, we can really figure out your website problems. He's like, hell yeah, dude. And if I pull out this arrow, I think we can solve your advertising problem. Hell yeah, dude. And if I pull this out, we can solve your logo problem. He's like, dude, I'm in, right? Is there anything stopping you, Nicholas, from starting today? I got to chat to my wife or my co-pilot, my business partner, what have you. Cool. If they were here right now, what would they say? This is what I'm talking about. You want to create tension in the sales process. So for me, guys, I think if you're trying to grow a business, point I want to make here is so many of us are struggling with our sales acumen. I'm a brand strategist. I specialize in design, copywriting, web development, and creative. But behind that, I've learned how to be ruthlessly commercial through learning how to do sales well. And if you're struggling in business, the first silver bullet I would say that would cure most of your business problems is learning how to get really good at the sales process. Now, I know I'm going way over time, Diana, so do we need to kick me off the stage?
We have.
Okay.
So sorry.
We're going to have to kick the lights off. But guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you for having me.
So give Dain a big applause.
I'll be outside.